Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Penner. I'm the author of The Lost Apothecary, which comes out March 2nd, 2021 with Park Row Books, an imprint of HarperCollins. And many of you know that last week I revealed my cover for The Lost Apothecary, which we have been working on since April, and I am thrilled with the final result. So one of the segments that I had an idea for that I'm showing you today was about how we got to this final cover. And I asked my editor, and she asked the Harlequin art team if I could have permission to show you several of the covers that didn't make the final cut, and they said yes. So I'm very excited today to walk you through these. I'm going to flip over to them in a second and talk through each concept and kind of the process that went behind the discussion around each concept and how we gave feedback to my publisher. And then, of course, I'll show you where we ultimately landed, which many of you have seen, but I think it will be a lot of fun to show you the before and after. So a couple of things before I get started. One thing that I was thrilled about is when I got my book deal, my agent negotiated for me the final cover approval of the cover, which is kind of unusual. The author normally does not have final cover approval. So that was very exciting that I felt like I had maybe a little more agency in the cover process than I otherwise would have expected. However, that does not mean that I was sort of controlling the process, and certainly didn't mean that every single desire and wish that I had was going to be incorporated. And that's fine because it's a very collaborative process. So that's just something to keep in mind as I walk you through the process. The other interesting note related to that is the very week that I got my book deal, my editor asked me, what are you envisioning for the cover? And I had in my mind this little snowy shop front, an apothecary shop front with sash windows, very much in the style of old London. And I told her that that was my idea. And I even sent her a couple of little clips from Pinterest. However, as you know, if you've seen the cover, an apothecary shop is not on the cover. And so that just proves my point that while HarperCollins was very receptive and open to my feedback, it is a collaborative process and their marketing team knows what works and what sells. And so although my final cover does not have my initial request or vision on it, it still is something that I love and is very meaningful to the book. It's got a vial on it, which is paramount to the story. And they gave me a lot of opportunity to express my feedback and my desires for the cover. So that's just another little caveat and sort of a fun insight into the process. So I got my book deal in November 2019, and we worked on edits and copy edits through end of March. And then April 17th is when I got my first email from my editor with the initial cover concept, cover number 1 that I'm about to show you. And we went back and forth on a total of 5 different covers, and we finalized that in let's see, June 5th, so just a few weeks ago. So it took about 6 weeks, which at the time felt like a long time because I was so excited to have this final visual. But now in hindsight, 6 weeks for 5 different covers, knowing that each time it had to go through my agent, my editor, and the marketing team and the art team really doesn't seem so bad now that we're on the other side of it. So let's go ahead and flip over. I'm going to share my screen and show you cover number 1. Okay, so this is cover number 1, the very first image and concept that the team showed to me. I was instantly wowed by the colors, the very dark blues, the rich, vibrant pinks, and then of course the vial, which as you can see takes center focus on this image. I thought that the title, the bright, bold title of The Lost Apothecary was very striking. And I also thought that Sarah Penner, the way that that has kind of a gold appearance, which matches the gold of the vial, I thought that was very beautiful as well. So when I first got this image and loved it, my agent and I, my team at my agency, talked through this. We had a call about this, and we talked through several of the elements. So I didn't really know where we go from here and what the feedback process looks like. I learned a lot that I'm going to share with you. But I didn't really know what we do from here. So we have an image, we like it. There are some things we want to change, some things we want to keep. Where do we go from there? So we basically decided to send back our initial batch of feedback via email to my editor. And my editor really served as the go-between between myself and the art team at Harlequin. So a couple of the things that we told her, the scales of justice at the very top of the vial, we wanted those removed. I personally thought that they were a bit distracting. Also wanted to thin up and refine the edges of the vial itself. I requested that we remove the dragonfly because there is not actually a dragonfly in the story. However, there is a butterfly and a beetle, which are the other two insects. And let's see, I also went and I dug up some images online of old apothecary labels. So I thought there was perhaps opportunity to change a novel, which is about midway through the vial. I thought there was opportunity to change that a bit to be more similar to, a historic apothecary label or vial. So version 2, which they sent over a week or two later, looks like this. So you can immediately see a couple of changes here. The image for one is brighter. If I go back to number 1, number 2, it's definitely brighter. There's also, they added some flowers around the side to kind of give it more of a full dimension on all 4 sides as opposed to the top and bottom. They removed the dragonfly and they brightened the butterfly significantly, which I'll come back to in a second. And then they changed the vial stopper as well. So they removed the scales of justice and instead incorporated some reflective etching. And then per our request, they also refined the edges of the vial a little bit. And then you can see they did take those 2 words, a novel, and they put a little decorative underscore underneath there. And that was much closer to me for what I was looking for in terms of the design of that font. So the butterfly, while I did appreciate that they made it brighter and a little more vibrant, or a lot more vibrant, I felt that it was actually still a little too bright. And so I copied and pasted the image into Microsoft Paint, and I applied some of my own just rudimentary blue shading to show my editor what I had in mind in terms of the hue of that butterfly. And I think that they appreciated that because you can only describe an image or a visual so much. At a certain point, it just helps to go in and kind of show them exactly what you're thinking. So the next version they sent over looks like this. It's pretty similar. However, you'll see again the vial stopper they changed. They made it kind of going towards that 3-dimensional stopper, which is where we ultimately landed. However, this one is more rectangular shaped, and they also darkened the butterfly a little bit. So versions 2 and 3 are really pretty similar. You can see that there is a little more of that white shadow, the white shadow of the flowers in the very back where it's very dark. That kind of pops out a little bit towards me, which I think is sort of haunting and spooky and mysterious. So I loved that. The interesting thing about this version, however, is that the publishing team, my editorial team, they weren't wild about this. So the art team presented this stopper, but still we just didn't feel like it quite hit the mark for the final cover. And so at this time we were running up against a what I believe is a deadline, probably at the publishing house, that they needed to send over this image to the production team to start printing their advanced reader copies. And so they needed to get a version ready so that they could do that, even if it wasn't going to be the final version. And so number 4, which looks like this, that is the image that the publishing team sent over to the production team at HarperCollins to get the advanced reader copies printed. So this looks quite a bit different in that the vial is circular. It again has a couple of those little reflective marks or reflection marks. The vial itself is also a lighter gold, which I thought was interesting. It kind of brightened up. But this is, from what I understand, officially the version that went on the advanced reader copies, because they needed, like I said, to get that over to the production team so that they could have those out this fall to media and bloggers and reviewers, etc. So at that point, when we knew we had met the deadline for the production team on that, I was advised that there was going to be a couple of weeks while the art team continued to tinker with the vial stopper. So I kind of just sat back and relaxed to the best of my ability, knowing that the next version would be coming soon. And then just a few weeks ago, at long last, I got the email that the final cover, or version 5, I should say, was ready. And I was admittedly fairly nervous opening up the email. I didn't know what the next version of the vial stopper was going to look like. But the second I opened the email, I was thrilled. I loved it instantly. This here is the final cover for the Lost Apothecary. There are so many things that are very subtle that they adjusted in this final image. And to me, it really brings it all together and just hits every mark for me. So the vial stopper, for one, it's now one of my favorite parts of the entire image. It's a 3-dimensional prism. I envision this being glass or crystal. I love the etching that they added to the vial stopper, and they added it to kind of the top of the vial as well. You also may notice, if I kind of go back between 4 and 5, there is some sort of, I don't know the technical art term for this, but there's some sort of gray hue almost that's been applied to number 5. I don't want to say it's less vibrant, because that has a negative connotation, but I guess in some ways it is less vibrant, but like in a really lovely sepia historical way. And again, I'm sure that there's some term in photography or art for what I'm trying to explain, but they just softened the colors a little bit, and I think it's beautiful. So I can't even tell you how thrilled I am with this cover. Almost immediately after giving the go-ahead that this was it, that this was final, and I was thrilled with it, I went and ordered a new phone case with this on the back of it, and I ordered a little acrylic image or photograph to hang in my office when I finish my office renovation. So I just absolutely love it. I think it's feminine. I think it's mysterious. I think it's alluring. I think in some ways it's slightly tragic and spooky. There are so many things. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but the blue butterfly and the bright green beetle, they both feature in the story in very important ways. So I'm just absolutely thrilled with where we landed. So I'm going to stop sharing, and that's really all I've got today. That's a brief overview of the process. I hope it's been interesting for you. If you have any questions about anything I just covered, feel free to ask them in the comments below this video. And again, my book comes out March 2nd, 2021. I'm on Goodreads. It's available to request on NetGalley for any reviewers or bloggers or media. Also on Edelweiss. And for those of you who are just excited to read it, please add it to your Goodreads. It's also available on Amazon for pre-order, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, all of the retailers, or of course your local indie bookstore. So thank you guys all so much. I hope this was fun. Bye.